philosophical outlook on our country's commercial law system. I also represented PhilJA in the Supreme Court in the MCLE Governing Board, which is chaired by Justice Carol Grino Aquino, and have been involved in upgrading the rules and proceedings by which accredited providers may better serve the training needs of Filipino lawyers. I continue to be a member of the PhilJA Core Professors. I have served 3 terms as members of the Technical Panel for Legal Education of the CHED, under the chairmanship of Justice Bernardo Pardo, and after that, Justice Jose Vito. I have been involved in the accreditation of newly opened law schools prior to the constitution of the Legal Education Board. I was also part of the committee that drafted the CHED memorandum that was formally adopted by the Legal Education Board, which has overhauled the standards of legal education in our country. During the incumbency of Chief Justice Renato Puno, I served as a member of the Supreme Court Subcommittee on Commercial Courts that submitted amendments to the interim rules of procedure for corporate rehabilitation. Until I resigned from the deanship, I was a member of the board of directors of the Philippine Association of Law Schools, PALS, serving also then as its vice president. I am a fellow of the Institute of Corporate Directors, a public foundation that seeks to promote and upgrade the corporate governance standards for both the private sector and within the government-owned and controlled corporation sector. Also a certified public accountant, having taken commerce or accountancy as my pre-law degree, even then with full intention that I would devote my legal career in commercial law development in our country. I've always been a keen student of Philippine commercial law, having published 5 books on related matters: Philippine Commercial Law Review, Philippine Corporate Law, Law on Sales, Non-Corporate Media of Doing Business, which covers the Philippine laws on agency, trust, partnership, and joint ventures, and recently the Law and Practice on Philippine Corporate Governance, which parenthetically won the 2009 National Book Board Award for Professional category. I have since my student days published various works on both constitutional and commercial law matters, and delivered papers on the Philippine commercial system and the Philippine insolvency system before international fora. Both my private and academic work have been primarily geared towards the rule of law regime, particularly in evolving a commercial law system that treats of the operation of common law statutes within a predominantly civil law system. Your Honors, I am the product of the public school system, having taken up my elementary education at the Santo Rosario Elementary School in Angeles City, obtained my high school education under the tutelage of Belgian priests in the Chevalier School, and I obtained my college degree from the Holy Angel University, magna cum laude, and eventually became a member of its Board of Trustees. I am essentially, Your Honors, a provinciano, having left Pampanga only at 21 years of age to take up my law studies at the Ateneo, where I graduated valedictorian and cum laude. I continue to go home from my work each day to Pampanga. I am married to my college classmate, Arlene Sicanco, who is now the president of the Holy Angel University, and we have 3 children. Our eldest and only son and my other daughter are both lawyers. I am a lolo, with my first grandson being born to our youngest daughter 2 years ago, and we are expecting our second grandson to be born to our older daughter sometime in November of this year. By way of ending, I share my personal philosophy of the law. For me, Your Honors, the law constitutes the very essence of man's civilization. It represents the mind, the heart, and the soul of every society. Leading members of society set out a set of precepts, rules, and regulations which they consider important for the members thereof to live and grow in a civil fashion. That is law as the mind of society. For the individual members of that society, the law assures them of the power to determine the course of their lives, to seek fulfillment and happiness for themselves and their families, consistent with the desires and dreams of their neighbors. That is law at the heart of society. And finally, the law provides for them the means by which society can protect and nurture some of its weakest and most marginalized members as its primary expression of the collective duty to a higher being. That would be law as the soul of society. In all these 3 aspects, the law therefore epitomizes the ideals, the virtues, and the actions of a civilized society. Thank you, Your Honors.
Attorney Cayusa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I propound my questions, I would just like to make it of record and disclose that Dean Cesar Villanueva was my professor in sales at the ADMU Law School. Good afternoon, Dean.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
You were recommended by, among others, the Philippine Trial Lawyers Association, and they come here in full force. What encouraged you to give your conformity and to be considered for the position of Chief Justice?
Well, first and foremost, I think our nation in general, as well as our judiciary in particular, are at a crossroads. The vacancy has been created through an impeachment process that have fitted many of our great institutions. And therefore, men and women of goodwill in this country ought to show that they believe in the process, in the selection process. And therefore, when I was nominated by the Trial Association, I thought it was an honor for them. It was an honor for me to honor such nomination and participate in the process, to show that it is possible to continue, for democracy to continue to march on, especially in one of the most important branches of judiciary, of the government, which is the judiciary.
You have been in your current position for, as you mentioned, just almost a year. Now, what made you decide that this would be the proper time to maybe change course, because you have always been involved in commercial law, and in the judiciary it will be a completely different orientation? Why this at this point in your life?
Oh, basically because I believe that the Supreme Court, as it fashions out and explains the precepts by which our society moves on, and on the constitutional mandates, economic mandates, I think that being part of the Supreme Court and molding the decisions by which to look at and update the commercial law principles of our country as they are connected with constitutional precepts is an important task. And even my works, Your Honors, have always consisted of looking at how the Supreme Court, through what I call judicial activism, has been able to move on to international standards, the commercial law standards of these countries, to allow us to compete well with the rest of the world. So the Supreme Court, through its precedent-setting powers, is the cornerstone of that great process, Your Honor.
Notwithstanding the fact that you have only been in government for less than a year, what have you set out for in the judiciary, particularly with respect to judicial reform? What do you propose would be the of a Villanueva Court?
A Villanueva Court is one that looks at the end of that term, if it comes to pass, you would see a Supreme Court that has allowed itself to be shown to the public as a great institution that has worked cooperatively with the other two branches of the government towards fulfilling the wish of our people for a just and humane society. And a judiciary constituted of dynamic, competent, and well-motivated judges and their staff spread all over the nooks and corners of this republic in the various courts, that they become the face of the republic and the very epitome of judiciary, so that the common tao would see that indeed justice is accessible to them, it has a face, and it is demonstrated. And more importantly, a legal profession that is so motivated, considers itself every day of their existence to be truly quasi-public, if not public officers, but officers of the court, who will, in their daily task before the courts, in protecting their clients, are able to show that it is possible for our profession to be at the forefront of achieving a just and humane society. And that is all achieved by a Supreme Court that exudes the very foundation of what we call a just and human society through its procedures, through its decisions, and through the actuations of its very 15 justices, Your Honor.
Thank you, Dean. You have been part of molding the legal careers, I would say, of many of your students, this included. In fact, I would like to tell you that a great deal of style in instructing my students in law school, I derive the inspiration from your own style?